Danny Kruger.
Indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker, let me start by paying tribute to my right honourable friend, the member for Ludlow, for securing this debate, but also for all the work he does to champion the cause of English rivers. I don't think anybody in our country, except possibly the Minister, has done more to preserve and, well, to enhance and defend the health of our rivers. Not even the Duke of Wellington owes us thanks in the way that my right honourable friend does, and I'm very pleased to have helped sponsor this debate. I echo every point that's been made about the critical state of our rivers and the absolute imperative that we have to act and to go further. My constituency of Devizes in Wiltshire has a number of rivers which are really suffering in their health. I particularly think of the Avon, the Hampshire Avon, SSSI, which is suffering increasing phosphate loads every year. This is obviously a complete disaster for the health of the river itself, for the biodiversity of the river and the soil, but it's also a disaster for people whose health is affected. And also, Madam Deputy Speaker, for the wider concerns of the economy, it stops development, and that might be a good thing. In fact, it is a good thing in lots of ways when there are brakes on inappropriate development in our rural areas. But quite rightly, Wiltshire Council has paused development permissions periodically because it has to put in place mitigations due to the phosphate that is pouring into our rivers. This is harmful to the wider cause of getting the housing that we need into our area. So we have to do something. And the simple fact is that offsetting by developers is inadequate. They can't possibly offset enough to cope with the phosphate loads that are going into the rivers. So the essential need, as many honourable members have made the point this afternoon, is for investment, particularly in sewage treatment works. We have to build the infrastructure that can cope. And I recognise my right honourable friend made the point very delicately, but the fact is that historically the mandate that OFWAT has operated under has made its overriding focus bearing down on prices, on the water, on the rates that people pay for their water. And ultimately, the single focus on water price is unsustainable. And I accept, and the member for Plymouth Sutton made the point absolutely correctly, this is not the moment to be anticipating or calling for price rises in people's water bills. However, long term, my right honourable friend is right, and I welcome the strategic policy statement which allows for investments in infrastructure, which will ultimately feed through into prices, which I think is the only way to finance this work. So I do welcome the SPS and this new expectation on water companies to invest. And I also echo the point made by my friend from Broxbourne, who made the point that when companies are fined for the sewage discharges, that money shouldn't just be going to the Treasury or back in pointless or meaningless little reductions in bills. That money needs to go into restoration of the landscape. Because the work that we need and the investment that we need is not just about great concrete infrastructure investments. And in fact, the best sort of sewage treatment, as I've seen in Wiltshire, is done through nature-based solutions, not through great big concrete pieces of infrastructure. We need green and grey kit. And I saw it with a project, in fact, sponsored by Wessex Water, to their credit, on land owned by the Wiltshire Wildlife Trust, which is a reed bed, which processes dirty, foul water. It's a very inoffensive, you would hardly call it infrastructure, it's a field with a lot of reeds growing in it. It's a swamp. It doesn't smell, looks perfectly nice. You'd hardly notice it walking past it. But the water that flows out of that reed bed that entered filthy then pours out into the river at the other side. And the water that flows into that river is actually cleaner than the quality of the water coming down the river itself. So it is enhancing our environment when we get good nature-based infrastructure. I want to end with just a tribute to some people who have inspired me in Wiltshire to take up this cause and to work on the mission of cleaning up rivers. And they're anglers. So Tom Putnam in particular, a constituent who got in touch with me, concerned about the state of the Hampshire Avon where he fishes. David Bromhead. Also Charlotte Hitchmo, who leads the Action on the River Kennet, an absolutely outstanding charity that supports the Kennet River, and I've been out planting trees and supporting the work that they do. And also Gary Mantle at the Wiltshire Wildlife Trust. A suggestion made by one of them, and I echoed, and I wonder if the Minister agrees, it might seem a little sort of totemic, but we have these amazing volunteers on all of our rivers, which is a great thing. We also have lots of water companies, businesses and others, developers, councils. What we really need is some coordination that's river-based. So rather than just the great national or regional missions to address, catchment area-based policies, why don't we appoint, and the government could sort of authorise, some kind of river god for each river, or a warden perhaps called. Somebody who is a volunteer, doesn't work for the government and doesn't necessarily have any power, but has the authority to coordinate the voluntary effort that goes on along each river, because people think in terms of rivers rather than counties or even areas, for water company areas. And I think for us to authorise individuals, and I've got some people who I'd nominate for the Kennet or for the two Avons, who would take that responsibility to champion the cause of the river and intermediate between power and all the other volunteers who work there locally. I just want to end, and I've made this point in speeches on rivers before, I feel a special responsibility to rivers because I represent Morgan's Hill, which, Madam Deputy Speaker, is a spot just north of Devizes, a beautiful spot where a drop of rain that falls on Morgan's Hill could end up flowing out west along the Bristol Avon and into the Atlantic. It could also flow south along the Hampshire Avon and into the English Channel, or it could flow out with the Kennet east and into the Thames and out into the North Sea. So Morgan's Hill is this hydrological dividing point that waters the whole of southern England. And I feel a particular responsibility to the rivers that flow out of this district of Wiltshire. My honourable friend wants to come in.
Very briefly, can I say how lucky for that drop of water if it flows through the Hampshire Avon, one of the finest rivers in this country. It is a blessed drop of water.
It would be very lucky, except it would get loaded with phosphate on the way, and that's the challenge that we have to mitigate. But yes, equally the Kennet and the Bristol Avon are glorious rivers, and I think we have a responsibility to try and clean them. I really do pay tribute to the Minister for the work she does. She's an absolutely indefatigable champion of water, health and our rivers. And I'm very pleased at the spirit of this debate, and I pay tribute particularly to the member for Plymouth Sutton, who could have laid into the government, as he used to do on the front bench, but actually paid tribute to the Minister for her commitment on this cause. So I think we're all in the right place. Thank you, Madam Speaker.